All right, Jen Garigliano, the floor is yours.
So welcome everybody. I'm glad to see that there are so many people on this call today. I didn't actually think we'd get this many, but I'm glad to see that people were able to change their things around and that we were able to get this scheduled. So this is kind of a little bit of a follow-up from our last board meeting that we had. We ran out of time on the agenda, so instead of trying to have Kelly jam-pack her presentation into like 2 to 3 minutes, we thought it was better to schedule a separate meeting so that she could give this topic really the time and attention that it deserves. So with that said, Kelly Anderson from PWD, she is the program manager of water resources planning and protection programs. Climate change, adaptation, water quality compliance modeling, source water protection, and watershed field services are all under Kelly's supervision. PWD has an extensive watershed protection program that focuses on actively managing and coordinating the necessary programs that best protect the Schuylkill and Delaware rivers, the sources of Philadelphia's drinking water supply. So PWD supplies drinking water to over 1.6 million people and manages and treats stormwater and wastewater for approximately 2.2 million people in the Philly region. Kelly has worked for PWD since 2005 after graduating from Drexel University. She is also a WRA board member. So I'm very excited that she is here to present on the recreational use in the Delaware River topic. So Kelly, I will turn it over to you. I would just say, hold on real quick. If you have a question for Kelly and you don't want to lose it, throw it in the chat. So it'll be there when she's done, and then we can go through them all from there. So now it's yours, Kelly.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for the introduction. And thanks to WRA for inviting me to present today. I appreciate the opportunity. I know at the last meeting, we had a lot of topics to get through, and just scheduling another meeting for this topic was helpful. As Jen said, it would have been tough to get through this in 2 minutes. I had presented on this topic in December 2020 at the WRA board meeting and was asked to present again, given the attention this topic has been generating across the region. I've modified and updated my presentation from December to include some recent updates related to PWD's efforts to evaluate recreational use. I'm happy to see that some of my colleagues that are working on some of the studies with PWD are on the call today. The topic of changing recreational use designation continues to be a hot topic in the urban corridor of the river and continues to be an elevated topic of discussion at DRBC's Water Quality Advisory Committee. PWD believes both public health and safety need to be of utmost priority with regards to the topic of swimming and recreation in and on the river in the Philadelphia area. My presentation today will focus on an overview and update on recreational use, introduction, efforts to date, and next steps. The focus of today's discussion is on Zone 3 and Upper Zone 4 of the Delaware Estuary, highlighted in orange on this map. This 27-mile stretch of the tidal Delaware River is adjacent to the cities of Philadelphia, Camden, and Chester. Recreational use is typically categorized as either primary or secondary contact. Primary contact includes activities such as swimming and kayaking or water activities that you're submersed or have the there's a risk that you could swallow or ingest water. Secondary contact includes activities such as boating and other fishing and activities where you're on the water, but not necessarily in the water. The existing secondary contact use designation was affirmed by a 1999 use attainability assessment, the Del USA project. The Del USA project was a cooperative effort between DRBC, EPA, and the state environmental protection agencies. This stretch of the river is designated as secondary contact due to water quality and safety concerns, two challenges that I will discuss today. Currently, there are a variety of formal and informal discussions surrounding changing the secondary contact recreational use designation to a more stringent primary contact designation. This change from primary to secondary would lead to a more stringent bacteria standard in the main stem Delaware River in zones 3 and upper zones 4, and also the tidal tributaries of the Philadelphia area, including the tidal Schuylkill. These are These are the regulatory and non-regulatory groups discussing recreational use. So you have the DRBC Water Quality Advisory Committee, which is tasked with developing recommendations for the DRBC commissioners' consideration. A change to the designated use would have to be voted on by the DRBC commissioners. Pennsylvania DEP has their Pennsylvania Triennial Review of Water Quality Standards. Pennsylvania water quality standards were last updated in 2020 and continued to exclude primary contact use in this 27-mile stretch because of impacts from combined sewer overflows and hazards associated with commercial shipping and navigation. There's also the Return to the River project, which is ongoing at the current time. The Water Center at Penn received a $400,000 grant from the William Penn Foundation to develop a roadmap to achieve primary contact recreation use for this 27-mile stretch. And finally, there was a petition from the NGOs to the DRBC in March 2020, led by the Delaware Riverkeeper Network and other prominent environmental organizations, submitted to the DRBC arguing that primary contact recreation is an existing use and therefore should be the designated use in this 27-mile stretch. At the most recent DRBC Water Quality Advisory Committee meeting on April 15th, 2021, DRBC staff presented a list of options for DRBC's potential regulatory direction regarding recreational use in zones 3 and upper zone 4, asking what would the committee recommend to the commissioners at this time. At the next Water Quality Advisory Committee meeting, members will discuss and possibly vote on the list of options to determine which regulatory approach should be recommended to the commissioners for their consideration. It's significant that DRBC staff is asking the Water Quality Advisory Committee to provide a formal recommendation to the commissioners because a recommendation could either initiate or stall a change to the recreational use. The city of Wilmington is currently the regulated community representative at the Water Quality Advisory Committee, with Philadelphia Water Department serving as the alternate member. This means PWD will not be able to vote at the upcoming committee meeting, but we will be coordinating with the other municipal rep from Wilmington. For reasons we will discuss today, it will be critical for PWD and its partners to speak out against any option that seeks to change the secondary contact use and associated criteria that currently applies to Zone 3 and Upper Zone 4. I'm going to walk through Philadelphia's 3 priority considerations as they relate to changing the recreational use standard. PWD asked that all regulatory and non-regulatory entities discussing recreational use prioritize public safety, public health, and affordability. Threats to public safety from primary contact recreation in the Delaware are real. Hazards include commercial shipping traffic, strong currents, deep water, submerged infrastructure and debris, point and non-point source pollution, CSOs, and treated wastewater discharge. Swimming and kayaking or paddleboarding in this area is dangerous. The city provides safer alternatives for water recreation, including more than 91 spray grounds and 70 outdoor pools that are free and staffed with lifeguards and accessible to all city neighborhoods. These pictures show some of the threats to public safety from primary contact recreation in zones 3 and upper zone 4. Commercial shipping hazards are numerous, with over 4,000 large cargo ships passing through the secondary contact area each year. A far more seaworthy 7-ton boat was even capsized in 2010, and tragically lives were lost. In addition to the stated dangers, commercial shipping and a working waterfront are critical to the regional economy and should not be impinged upon to accommodate swimming, kayaking, and paddleboarding, particularly in the center channel. Dangerous swimming conditions are also very real. The Delaware River is over 30 feet deep, just adjacent to Penn's Landing. And sadly, just last year, 2 lives were lost swimming in dangerous currents in the tidal Schuylkill River. So this, the images here show some of the marine activity that we see routinely daily along the coast in Philadelphia with the Packer Avenue Marine Terminal. Sadly, the picture of the duck boat accident in July 2010, where lives were lost. The water depth map or image on the left-hand corner is showing the depths of the river, and you can see that the depth increases dramatically not far off the coast of the shoreline in Philadelphia. And then sadly, this is the news article from when 2 teenagers passed away last year after trying to swim in the tidal Schuylkill near Bartram's Garden. Excuse me. Philadelphia's second major consideration related to changing recreational use is public health. This area is congested with CSOs, treated wastewater discharges, manufacturing, and industrial discharges. Municipal, manufacturing, and industrial discharges are dangerous locations that discharge water at a high volume, high velocity, and in some cases a higher temperature. Instances when combined sewers are overflowing due to wet weather are a public health hazard, and flow exiting the outfalls can increase very rapidly and catch people off guard after rain events. So this image here on this map is depicting the CSO outfall locations in zones 3 and zones 4. There are there are 220 CSO outfalls in this area, 164 in Philadelphia, 30 in Camden County, and 26 that are managed by Delcora. There's over 2.9 million wastewater treatment customers. This area receives over 600 million gallons a day of treated wastewater effluent. And the larger dischargers include PWD, CCNUA, GCUA, and Delcora. Philadelphia's third priority consideration for changing recreational use is affordability, because customer monthly bills can't keep going up each year. Philadelphians are already paying for investments in environmental quality through their monthly bills. These investments include compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act. PWD operates 3 water pollution control plants that consistently achieve compliance with NIPD's permit conditions. Any DRBC recreation standard change requires extensive planning for possible plant modifications, in addition to the modifications investigated as part of the ongoing DRBC process to evaluate more stringent dissolved oxygen and nutrient standards. In 2011, PWD signed a consent order and agreement between the state of Pennsylvania DEP, and PWD to reduce combined sewer overflows. Currently, we're in year 10 of our 25-year plan, where we have anticipated to spend $2.4 billion to reduce the occurrence of combined sewer overflows during wet weather. The plan includes widespread implementation of green infrastructure, along with traditional gray infrastructure techniques to managing our collection system. And having to reach a more stringent standard such as primary contact would require a change in the plan, extensive use of new and updated infrastructure, and billions in additional cost. Excuse me. PWD is conducting studies to support the recreational use evaluations occurring through Pennsylvania's triennial review of water quality standards and the DRBC's Water Quality Advisory Committee. PWD's efforts include a water quality analysis, which was completed but will be updated when new data is available, a safety study, which is in progress, and a socioeconomic study, which is currently being scoped. These studies will be discussed in more detail in the preceding slides. PWD is also engaging with key stakeholders such as Pennsylvania DEP, DRBC staff, DRBC's Water Quality Advisory Committee, representatives from the maritime community, other entities within the city of Philadelphia, and organizations like WRA. PWD is conducting a safety study in zones 3 and upper zone 4 to examine how hazards associated with commercial shipping, navigation, and shoreline modifications may affect the suitability of recreational activities. To aid in scoping this study, PWD has reviewed recreational UAAs, use sustainability analyses, that were conducted at other US ports. 2 UAAs were particularly helpful to us in scoping the safety study, which we initiated earlier this year. The first was a UAA that the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District completed in 2007 for the Mississippi River in the vicinity of St. Louis, Missouri. And the second was a UAA that the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Resources, that's what PIDEP was called prior to being PIDEP, completed in 1985 for the PResque Isle Bay and Outer Erie Harbor. PWD's safety study will examine if UAA factors 3, which is human caused conditions, and 4, hydraulic modifications, preclude the attainment of primary contact use in zones 3 and upper zones 4. The final report will be provided to Pennsylvania DEP to support the triennial review and will be provided to the DRBC and the Water Quality Advisory Committee to support ongoing recreational use evaluations and discussions. We've contracted with the Maritime Exchange. I think Lisa is on this call. Hi, Lisa. For the Delaware River and Bay to assist with engagement, communications, and data collection for our study. Maritime Exchange represents nearly 300 maritime businesses and organizations, and the exchange's mission is to protect and promote the Delaware River commercial maritime industry. Maritime Exchange staff have been instrumental in connecting PWD to marine safety experts at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Coast Guard of sector of Delaware Bay, NOAA, Philadelphia Police Marine Unit, and ship pilots. PWD is in the process of acquiring data from these entities now, and we look forward to having our report completed in time to submit to Pennsylvania DEP for their triennial review, which we anticipate to be in the spring of 2022. PWD is conducting the safety study to support conclusions that have already been reached by Pennsylvania DEP through its triennial review process. Pennsylvania water quality standards exclude primary contact use in zones 3 and upper zones 4 of the Delaware estuary because of continuing significant, and this is the language from the triennial, continuing significant impacts from combined sewer overflows and hazards associated with commercial shipping and navigation. Primary contact is also excluded from a portion of the PResque Isle Bay and Outer Erie Harbor because of hazards from pleasure boating and commercial shipping. So it was very helpful for us to review that report that was generated in 1985 to inform how we're approaching our study in the Delaware River. Commercial shipping and navigation hazards in the Delaware estuary should be fully evaluated before any change to the designated use is considered. PWD's safety study can provide critical information to support this evaluation. Other PWD actions, we've analyzed center channel and nearshore bacteria monitoring data in zone 3 and upper zone 4 that was collected by the DRBC, Pennsylvania DEP, and PWD and EPA used to perform boat run sampling in the center channel. This data analysis will be presented in the preceding slides. We're currently scoping a separate study to evaluate if recreational use upgrade could result in substantial and widespread economic and social impacts. As I mentioned before, this is a component of a use attainability analysis, and this would complement use or UAA factor 6. This socioeconomic study has not been started and no timeline has been established yet, but we're in the process of getting our ducks in a row around that. Now I'm going to walk through the bacteria analyses that has been completed by PWD. Safety and water quality both are critical to understanding recreational use. So what does the water quality data tell us? There was a robust data set to analyze, which was great. DRBC's long-term boat run data program, PWD with assistance from EPA Region 3 also collected grab samples from the center channel from 2011 to 2017. And then more recently, Pennsylvania DEP collected data in this area of the river. We've combined, for the next couple slides, I'm going to show the combined 2 data sets of the DRBC long-term boat run data program and PWD's data to provide a robust analysis of bacteria in the secondary contact zone in the past 10 years. This graph presents the results of analyzing the DRBC boat run and PWD bacteria data sets. These data sets include both dry and wet weather. The y-axis is the monthly geomean of fecal coliform in the secondary contact zone, and that can be done when there are 5 or more samples were available between 2009 and 2019. The upper dotted line on the chart over here is the secondary contact standard of maximum geomean of 770 per 100 milliliters, and the lower dotted line is the primary contact standard of maximum geomean of 200 per 100 milliliters. If zone 3 and upper zone 4 were meeting the primary contact water quality standard, there would be no geomeans above 200. As you can see, that is not the case. Zone 3 and upper zone 4 are meeting the secondary contact standard, and this section of the river is in compliance with that standard. This graph also shows that water quality does not support the primary contact standard. So the takeaway here is that data analysis of the past 10 years demonstrates compliance with the existing secondary contact regulatory standard. The data also refute any notion that a more stringent, non-applicable standard is achieved. Excuse me, I'm just gonna sip my water. People collected bacteria samples at nearshore locations in Philadelphia during the 2019 recreation season. Just as a note, the recreation season is between May and September. We calculated geometric means for the 2019 recreation season, and the results were compared to EPA, DEP, and DRBC recreational water quality criteria. To familiarize with what you're seeing here, the green font indicates that the geometric mean met secondary and primary contact standards. The blue font indicates that the geometric mean met secondary standards, but not primary contact standards. And the red font indicates that the geometric mean did not meet secondary or primary contact standards. Our analysis indicates that primary contact standards are not being met at nearshore locations in Philadelphia. I mentioned too that, excuse me. Oh, where did I go? Sorry. Sorry about that. Pennsylvania DEP also collected bacteria samples at nearshore locations in Zone 3 and Upper Zone 4 during the 2020 recreational season. We received that data from DEP and calculated geometric means for the 2020 recreational season, and results were compared to EPA, PADEP, and DRBC recreational water quality. Analysis again indicates that primary contact standards are not being met at nearshore locations in Zones 3 and Upper Zones 4, which is a very similar picture to what we saw in with the information that PWD had collected the previous year in 2019. DRBC staff have also been collecting, and they're continuing to collect bacteria samples at nearshore locations in Zone 3 and Upper Zone 4. This slide here represents information that was collected during the 2019 and 2020 recreational seasons. So I think that they just initiated another year of recreational nearshore sampling, but we don't have that information yet. I think it was just kicked off last month. And again, our analysis and DRBC's analysis, this information was presented at the December 3rd Water Quality Advisory Committee meeting, indicate that primary contact standards are not being met at nearshore locations in Zone 3 and Upper Zone 4. So the major takeaway from this analysis is that secondary contact is being met in Zones 3 and Upper Zone 4, and primary contact is not. It is critical that high quality long-term data monitoring, such as the DRBC Boat Run program, is continued. This critical program provides decades of water quality results up and down multiple water quality zones throughout the estuary and basin. DRBC, PIDEP, and PWD performed separate short-term nearshore sampling, and those data sets reached the same conclusion as the center channel data. Primary contact use is not being met in Zone 3 and Upper Zone 4. So PWD's position. Our position is that secondary contact recreation should be maintained in Zone 3 and Upper Zones 4 due to public health, safety, and affordability concerns. Before any change to the recreational use is considered, we insist that public health, public safety, and affordability are evaluated to determine if primary contact is attainable in Zone 3 and Upper Zone 4. So to achieve that public health, we're looking at water quality, public safety, we're doing our safety study, and affordability, we're scoping a socioeconomic impact study. So here's the big picture for us. We know we can't look away while groups are talking about such a drastic and costly regulatory change. In the meantime, we're going to continue to focus on safety. PWD and the Maritime Exchange and the maritime community are working together to prepare a Delaware River safety study examining recreation in the context of commercial shipping, navigation, and shoreline hazards. Health, we meet we meet and will continue to meet all existing CSO and wastewater regulatory obligations. PWD is in year 10 of a 25-year plan to reduce CSOs. I believe the other larger wastewater facilities are all, Camden and Delcora are also in the process of negotiating and confirming their long-term control plan obligations. Any change to water quality standards will require PWD to reassess these programs. And finally, affordability. Affordability must be considered in any potential use change regulatory conversation. A use change could result in substantial and widespread economic and social impact. For what it could potentially cost Philadelphians, how many among them want to swim in the Delaware, and that's something we're also going to be looking into as well. And with that, that's it. I'd just like to give a shout out to Lisa Himber from Maritime Exchange. We're working closely with her right now on our safety study. And I believe my colleague and partner in crime with this work, Alex Ridyard from Sage Services, he's on contract with the Water Department to help lead our efforts around this issue as well. So thanks to them both. And also, I don't think Jay is on the call today, but Jay Cruz from Philadelphia Water Department is the Water Quality Advisory Committee representative, and also has been helping lead this effort with me and my staff. So thank you.
Kelly, I just want to point out that you've got kudos in the chat.
Oh, great.
Folks,
Hold on, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Really a great presentation.
It's funny, you know, I have two monitors, but like just trying to navigate.
Well, you walked us through a lot of data. So
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm happy to pull it up again if there's questions, but I'm going to stop sharing. I think they're looking at both. I believe that, you know, the Riverkeeper petition was not targeting any like specific geographic location within the 27-mile stretch. It was focused on that 27-mile stretch. That stretch, zones 3 and upper zone 4 are the only sections of the Delaware River Basin zones that are designated as secondary contact, not primary contact. So I think, you know, looking at the river, it jumped out to the NGOs that, okay, this piece of the river, let's try to change the standard there. But they have to take into consideration existing water quality and safety. And those, like the safety piece, there's been, you know, a number of efforts over the past couple of years to collect bacteria data in this section of the river. But we saw an opportunity to hone in on the safety element of this. And that's why we're focused on safety with the Maritime Exchange. And but I do think that there are groups that are like, there's different groups involved in there's different NGOs that have different focuses surrounding this issue. And we have heard that they're looking for potentially locations that meet primary contact conditions sometimes, but not all the time. But we still have to see, you know, we have yet to see where they're kind of focusing their efforts. But we know that there has been a lot of work that's being done through different William Penn Foundation grants and different efforts that are happening through various NGOs to investigate certain beach, I don't even like to use the word beach, but beaches in this section of the river. Oh, PResque Isle Bay. So they're PResque Isle Bay, well, the outcome for the PResque Isle Bay is in Pennsylvania, and that study was done by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Resources, which is now PADEP. And they also have an exception or exemption in the triennial because of shipping and pleasure boat and commercial activity in that section of the outer Erie Harbor. The UAA for St. Louis, they did a pretty robust safety study working with Army Corps of Engineers. That river is different than the Delaware, where there's a number of dams and levees that are operated to you know, promote and allow commerce on that river. So they had different considerations to look at, but they were also able to withhold, you know, safety considerations when in relation to how water quality standards are developed. Well, we know the water quality isn't there, and we know that for primary contact activities, and we know that we're investigating the safety side of the equation now. I will say there are areas in the city of Philadelphia that non-tidal Schuylkill River, so the Schuylkill River above the Fairmount Dam, is designated for water contact sports, but the city of Philadelphia has regulations that prohibit swimming in our waterways, and a special permit it has to be obtained by Parks and Rec in order to have activities where you're in the water. So in the past, there's been a number of triathlons and different water sporting events that have occurred on the non-tidal Schuylkill, where they've been successful in getting the right permits to allow water recreation to happen. So it does, I mean, there are spots in the city where, where there could be opportunities for groups to, move forward with trying to have organized events where people are in the water. But for the most part, it's very safe. I mean, we don't have lifeguards. There needs to be lifeguards. There needs to be constant water quality monitoring if you're going to have bathers and swimming. I mean, you look at the regulations for swimming beaches, and to think about applying that in an urban area like Philadelphia and Camden and Wilmington, it would be a very, very different change from how things are operated today. And there'd have to be other considerations that would have to be thought through. No, there was not a recommendation. So options were presented by DRBC staff to the Water Quality Advisory Committee. Those options are available on DRBC's website. And it's our understanding that a meeting is going to be scheduled at some time in the near future where those options are going to be discussed, and a recommendation could potentially be moved forward to the commissioners being the representatives of the states. So PWD is in the process now. We met with DEP the other week about this. Pennsylvania, is our Anika Atkinson and her staff are our commissioners. They represent Pennsylvania and Philadelphia's interest. And then we're also planning on reaching out to DRBC, Steve Tambini, very soon to put a meeting on the calendar. We wanted to meet with DEP first, but we want to meet with DRBC and express our position and our thoughts on those options that were presented. But to date, there has not been a Water Quality Advisory Committee. The next meeting has not been scheduled, and those options were presented. And I think, folks have the opportunity to weigh in and express their opinions on those options. The fact is that the water quality is not meeting primary the water quality data that we've collected and analyzed, that was collected by not just PWD, DEP, DRBC, shows that primary contact is not being achieved. Secondary contact is what's being achieved. And it's my understanding that in order for a use to be considered to be changed, the water quality has to be there to support that use change. But that's something that is also kind of a question that DRBC has asked EPA to weigh in on. And, Mark, we worked with Mike Dillon on together, what's the difference between an existing use and a designated use, and it's important for folks to understand kind of the nuances there. So, yeah, I mean, we had an encouraging conversation with Pennsylvania DEP the other week, and they're excited for us to share information with them. They already have all the bacteria data that's been collected, and they are also interested in using the safety study to help re-certify or re-verify their triennial review findings. So that's in motion, and then it's just a matter now of figuring out with the Pennsylvania rulemaking process, what are those opportunities where we need to be putting information on the table to be able to, refute or react or respond to a change in the triennial. If Pennsylvania moves forward with changing their triennial, we want to make sure that we're putting information on the table that keeps Philadelphia at the forefront. We've been working with the Coast Guard through the Maritime Exchange, and we had to put in a FOIA request asking those questions. So we're in the process now of gathering information on incidents and and accidents in zones 3 and upper zones 4. But we are also interested in the lower zone 4 area, just because it is interesting that that area was designated as primary contact when it faces some of the same challenges. I mean, it's a wider section of river. You don't have as concentrated CSOs and wastewater effluent discharges in that section of the river as you do in zones 3 and zones 4. But we are looking at, you know, any maritime activity that's making its way to zones 3 and upper zone 4 is also passing through lower zone 4. So that is going to be something that we're looking at as well. I don't have anything to report out on that, but we are in the process of gathering that information. And we're also working with the Philadelphia Police Marine Unit. They also are tasked with responding and, responding to emergencies on the waterways in the city. So we're in the process of working with them at retrieving information as well.
You have a lot of expertise, a lot of resources, especially on this call. What can WRA do to be helpful?
I think that's a great question. Just giving me the opportunity to present is helpful. I mean, I think that having this forum to be able to engage with others that, might be hearing about this through the newspaper, there's been some articles in the newspaper about this. There's been articles on some of the NGOs websites about this. This has been a hot topic at the DRBC Water Quality Advisory Committee meeting. I think, using the WRA as a forum for the regulated community and for water users to come together and to share our insight and our thoughts on this and to hear other people's reactions to it is helpful. Probably at some point later this year, I'd be welcome to come. I would love to come back with Lisa Himber and present on the safety study and the results of the safety study. As we work to get information together, I think we'll be in a better place in about 6 or 7 months to report out on our findings. But just to listen to us and share information, I think that's where WRA and making those connections and sharing information.
Thank you. Jen, did you have follow-up thoughts about that?
Just Kelly, as you're continuing on, with your work, if you find that, it would be helpful for us to perhaps advocate in any way, shape, or form, we could take it to the board and see if there's enough interest and if enough members feel strongly about it. I mean, we know we're looking at this now as part of the policy, science and policy committee, you're a board member, how can we support those that are around us? Are there other members of WRA that, this is really a big ticket item for, can we help support you in any way, shape, or form? And, that might be premature to answer right now, but, if you think there is an opportunity for us to help make a little noise, don't hesitate to say something.
I think there could be, Jen, and thank you for bringing that up. I think there could be. I would, for the other regulated entities, I'm not sure if CCMUA, I'm not sure of who the member, if we have representation from CCMUA or I know Delcora participates in the WRA sometimes, but just having those ears on this, we've been doing our due diligence to try to, share information with them as we can. But I think that the forum of WRA is kind of perfect for folks within the regulated community to share information and our analysis. So thank you, because I think we might want to go down that path at some point. It'll be interesting to see what happens at the next Water Quality Advisory Committee. And I know that a lot of folks on this call and in WRA have their eyes on that committee as well. So it's definitely something I can keep you guys posted on. So that's a great point and good question, Preston. That's something that we're looking to dive into as we work, as we get more organized around our data coordination with Coast Guard. I have had some preliminary conversations with representatives from the Coast Guard, and for any activity that can present a hazard like kayaking or swimming in the shipping channel, Coast Guard wants to know about that in advance. And there is an Alex Ridyard. I don't know if you're if you're still on the line, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we did hear that there is a permit process or some type of process in place where when there are activities that could impinge upon the shipping channel, that Coast Guard needs to be aware of it, because it's not only a public safety threat, it's also a homeland security threat. You have all sorts of things being exported and imported down the Delaware River on a daily basis. Even some of the folks from the Coast Guard mentioned that if somebody was to, be in the center channel prohibiting activity from the, a boat from getting upstream or getting downstream, there could be, a risk of grounding. That boat could find itself grounded because it's trying to avoid swimmers or avoid kayaking. So it's we're not anti-swimming and anti-kayaking. I think that there's a balance to strike there with how we look at how our waterways are designated. But it is it's our opinion that it's incredibly dangerous to swim in the tidal Delaware. Oh boy. We're looking at both those issues very closely, but we haven't looked at them together yet. I think that there's a lot of nuts that we have to crack with just the recreational use issue in and of itself. We also have a robust amount of work happening in regards to flow management planning and, flow policy. We haven't connected those two yet, so I don't want to speculate on how one could impact the other. Good question.
Yeah, so who knows?
Right.
I mean, this hasn't come up. Nobody's brought it up. This would be a good thing for maybe somebody to bring before an RFAC meeting or something if there was a lot of strong feelings toward it, but it hasn't been brought up to the decree parties yet.
Yeah, we're hoping that the socioeconomic impact analysis would kind of dive into that a little bit to understand like what does the residents of the city of Philadelphia want when it comes to swimming. We have not been hearing from our ratepayers that they're looking for swimming beaches. They're concerned about water coming out of their tap, being able to flush their toilets and it getting out of their house and getting to the wastewater treatment plant. We have not received much feedback. I personally have not received much feedback, or no feedback has been sent back to me regarding residents of Philadelphia looking for swimming beaches. I'm sure that folks from Philadelphia signed on to the petition. There was a number of folks that signed on to that petition, but I think we'll have to see what shakes out in the next year with the safety study and the ongoing bacteria analysis that's happening. My job as a water resource manager at Philadelphia Water Department is to ensure that we're meeting the Clean Water Act and we're meeting the Safe Drinking Water Act and that we're protecting our water supply. Swimming beaches, how people are recreating, that starts to impinge on other areas of the city like Parks and Recreation, our Risk Management Department, Coast Guard. And that's why we're trying to make those touch points with those folks now to make sure that we're all kind of thinking about this together because we're thinking about it. I'm thinking about it from a Clean Water Act compliance perspective where other people are thinking about it from different perspectives, but it's important for us to understand all those perspectives, especially if we're evaluating the socioeconomic factors.
So Kelly, I can't thank you enough for a really phenomenal presentation. It was so rich in data and information. We are very grateful, and huge thanks to everybody who was part of this. The questions were exceptional, a lot of good conversation, and this is an issue that we will continue to work. So thank you all very much. And we will see a lot of you at the water quality meeting with DRBC.
Great. Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.